The evening at La Vienne started just like any other, with the soft sound of jazz playing in the background and the faint clinking of glasses filling the air. It was one of those fancy restaurants where everything sparkled. The lights, the silverware, even the smiles of the people who could afford to eat there. Waiters moved smoothly between tables, dressed in black and white uniforms, and the scent of roasted garlic and fresh bread made the whole place feel warm and alive. Among the guests that night was Ethan Miles, a billionaire CEO known for building one of the biggest tech companies in the country. He wasn't the kind of rich man who liked showing off. He didn't wear flashy clothes or bring bodyguards everywhere like other wealthy people. He believed in staying grounded, in being kind, and in treating everyone, from business partners to waiters, with the same respect. That's why many people admired him, even those who had never met him. He entered the restaurant quietly, wearing a dark suit and a calm smile. The hostess recognized him immediately, but kept her voice steady as she guided him to his table. He was joined by two of his closest colleagues, both of whom were nervous and excited. It wasn't every day they had dinner with one of the most powerful men in the city. Ethan, however, didn't act powerful at all. He joked with them, asked about their families, and laughed easily. For him, this dinner was a break from the long hours, the endless meetings, and the constant attention that came with success. At the same time, working in the corner of the restaurant was Lena Carter, a 29-year-old waitress with quiet eyes and a gentle way of speaking. She had joined La Vienne only a few months ago, but everyone liked her. She wasn't loud or dramatic. She just did her work perfectly, serving meals, remembering orders, smiling even when guests were rude. She had that calm energy that made people feel comfortable around her. But what no one knew was that Lena had a past she didn't talk about. Before she started working at the restaurant, she had trained for years in Krav Maga, a powerful self-defense technique. Her father, a police officer, had taught her everything: how to stay aware, how to move fast, and how to stay calm in danger. After he died in an accident, Lena promised herself she would never fight again. She wanted peace, a normal life, something simple, something that didn't hurt. So she left that world behind, hiding her skills deep inside and choosing to work as a waitress instead. That night, she moved from table to table, balancing trays and greeting customers. When she reached Ethan's table, she noticed how polite he was. Unlike most rich guests, he said thank you every time she poured water or brought a dish. It made her smile, a small, genuine smile that she hadn't felt in a while. For a few moments, she even forgot she was working. It felt like any other peaceful night. The restaurant looked beautiful under the golden chandeliers. Couples laughed over wine. A group of friends celebrated a birthday at the back table. The pianist in the corner played softly, and everything seemed perfect. But sometimes, peace is just the silence before a storm. Around 9 o'clock, the front door opened, and 5 men walked in. They didn't look like the usual guests. Their clothes were simple, their expressions serious, and their eyes restless. Something about them didn't fit the elegant atmosphere of La Vienne. They didn't wait to be seated politely. Instead, they scanned the room quickly before taking a table near the center. Lena noticed it right away, her instincts sharp even though she tried to ignore them. One of the men gave her a strange look, not like a customer but like someone checking the room for threats. She brushed off the uneasy feeling at first, telling herself not to overthink it. Maybe they were just workers celebrating after a long day, she thought. Still, something in her chest felt tight, a quiet warning that she couldn't explain. She tried to focus on her tasks, but every time she looked toward Ethan's table, she caught one of the men staring in that direction too. Meanwhile, Ethan was relaxed, unaware of the quiet tension growing around him. He was sharing stories about his early struggles, how he had started with nothing, working from his garage with a small team. His voice was calm and humble, and his laughter filled the room with warmth. He had no idea that danger was sitting only a few tables away, watching his every move. Lena passed by their table again, her tray steady but her heart beat fast. She heard one of the 5 men whisper something. It was quick, low, but she caught a few words. "Wait for my sign. Don't miss the target." Her stomach turned cold. She wasn't sure what they meant, but the way he said, "Target," made her uneasy. Her first instinct was to tell her manager. When she did, he just laughed softly and said, "Relax, Lena. Not everyone in old jackets is a criminal." But Lena couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. Her father had always told her, "Trust your instincts. They'll save your life someday." And tonight, those instincts were screaming. As she stood near the counter pretending to clean, she kept her eyes on the group. They were whispering again, glancing at Ethan's table more often now. Lena's hands trembled slightly, but her mind grew sharper. Her body remembered what it had once been trained to do. How to move, how to react, how to protect. Ethan, still smiling and unaware, lifted his glass for a toast with his friends. But across the room, 5 pairs of eyes had already locked onto him. And though no one else noticed, Lena knew deep down that something bad was about to happen. The quiet, beautiful evening at La Vienne was about to change forever. And the calm waitress everyone thought they knew would soon reveal a side of herself that would shock the entire world. Lena Carter had always seemed like an ordinary woman to everyone at La Vienne. She was polite, calm, and hardworking. The kind of person who never raised her voice or caused any trouble. Every morning she arrived 10 minutes early, tied her hair neatly, and started her shift with quiet dedication. To most people, she was just another waitress trying to earn a living. But that wasn't her whole story. Behind her gentle smile and quiet eyes, Lena carried memories she rarely spoke about. Memories of a completely different life. Before she wore an apron and carried trays, Lena wore training gloves and a black uniform. She had spent most of her teenage years and early 20s practicing Krav Maga, a self-defense technique that her father had taught her. Her father, Officer Daniel Carter, had been a kind but strict man, a police officer who believed in discipline, courage, and awareness. He often told her, "You don't need to be the strongest, Lena, just be prepared." From the age of 12, she had joined him in his early morning training sessions, punching old tires, learning how to fall safely, and blocking attacks. She wasn't doing it for medals or fame. She was doing it to make him proud, and to feel safe in a world that sometimes wasn't. By the time she was 19, she had already won several local tournaments. People called her the Calm Storm because she fought without anger, with complete control. She never liked violence, but she respected the art of defense, the ability to protect without hurting more than necessary. Her father used to watch her train with a smile, saying, "You've got it in you, kid. One day, this will save someone's life." Those words stayed in her heart forever, even after everything changed. One rainy evening, her father didn't come home from duty. Lena waited for hours, pacing by the window, her heart pounding every time a car passed by. It was close to midnight when 2 officers knocked on the door. The moment she saw their faces, she already knew what they were going to say. Her father had been killed while trying to stop a robbery. He had died protecting a family, doing what he had always done, putting others before himself. That night broke something inside Lena. The training gloves went into a box. The trophies gathered dust. And the gym she used to love became a place she couldn't bear to see anymore. Every punch reminded her of him. Every move echoed his voice. So, she decided to walk away from it all. She sold most of her old equipment and promised herself she would never fight again. Violence had taken her father, and she wanted nothing more to do with it. Years passed, and Lena built a quiet life. She moved to the city, rented a small apartment, and found a job at La Vienne. The restaurant world was different. Busy, tiring, but peaceful. No one there asked about her past, and she liked that. It was easier to pretend she was just a simple woman with a simple job. But even though she had buried her past, her instincts never completely disappeared. She still noticed small details that others missed. The sound of footsteps behind her, the shift in someone's tone, the quick movement of a hand. When a drunk customer once grabbed her arm, she didn't even think before she reacted. In one smooth motion, she twisted her wrist free without hurting him, leaving everyone around in silent surprise. Her coworkers laughed and said, "Lena, where did you learn that?" She just smiled softly and said, "My dad taught me a few things." That was all she ever said about it, and no one asked again. Deep down, Lena missed her old self, the confident, strong girl who believed she could protect anyone. But the pain of losing her father kept her from going back. She thought peace meant avoiding danger, staying invisible, living quietly. She never realized that life sometimes gives you no choice, that destiny can call you back even when you've run far away from it. That night at La Vienne, as she served drinks and smiled politely, she didn't know fate was about to test her again. The 5 strange men who had entered earlier kept making her uneasy. Her instincts told her something was wrong, but her mind told her not to make a scene. Still, she couldn't stop herself from watching them out of the corner of her eye. Her years of training had sharpened her senses. Every whisper, every glance, every sudden movement caught her attention. She noticed one man adjusting his jacket in a strange way, as if hiding something underneath. Another one kept his phone screen tilted toward him, glancing at Ethan Miles's table between messages. Lena's heartbeat grew faster. The air felt heavier. And suddenly she wasn't just a waitress anymore. Her old self, the protector, the fighter, began to wake up inside her. She could almost hear her father's voice saying, "Stay calm. Observe, prepare," trying not to attract attention. She moved closer to Ethan's table under the excuse of refilling water glasses. Ethan looked up with a kind smile and said, "Thank you, miss." She nodded politely, but her mind wasn't on small talk anymore. She was studying the men behind him, their body language, their timing, the way they exchanged quick glances. It felt like watching a storm slowly form, quiet but dangerous. Lena's hands trembled slightly as she placed the glass down. She didn't want to overreact, she didn't want to cause panic, but she knew deep down that something bad was about to happen. And if it did, she wouldn't be able to stand still, no matter how much she wanted to live peacefully. She couldn't just watch someone get hurt, because no matter how much she tried to change, a part of her would always be her father's daughter. And that part, the part that believed in protecting people, was alive again, stronger than ever. At that moment, Lena didn't know what destiny had planned for her. She only knew that if danger came, she would face it, not as a fighter seeking glory, but as a woman doing what was right. The calm, quiet waitress had no idea she was just minutes away from becoming a hero, and the secret she had kept hidden for so long was about to shock everyone in the room, including herself. The night was moving slowly inside La Vienne, the restaurant lights glowing softly over polished tables and quiet conversations. Most guests were lost in their own worlds, sipping wine, laughing, and enjoying the calm atmosphere. But for Lena Carter, the young waitress with the secret past, everything suddenly felt different. Her heart was calm on the outside, but inside, something told her that peace was about to break. It was around 9 when the front door opened again. 5 men stepped inside, their shoes squeaking softly against the marble floor. They looked out of place in a restaurant like this. No ties, no jackets, no smiles. Their faces were serious, their eyes sharp and scanning the room. They didn't come for dinner. Anyone could see that if they looked closely enough. The host greeted them politely. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" One of the men gave a short nod, but his answer was cold and rushed. "No, we'll just sit anywhere." Before the host could respond, they had already walked past him, choosing a table near the center. Their movements were fast and confident, the kind that made people look twice. Even the other waiters noticed, whispering quietly to each other, but then shrugged it off, thinking they were just rude customers. Lena was watching, trying not to be obvious. Her instincts started whispering again, warning her that something was off. The tallest man had a thick scar across his jaw and kept looking toward the corner where Ethan Miles sat. Another man pulled out his phone and typed something quickly before slipping it back into his pocket. The rest just sat still, their shoulders tense, their eyes shifting between Ethan's table and the entrance. Something in Lena's chest tightened. Her hands were steady, but her breath had become short and careful. She knew that kind of body language, not from waitressing, but from years of watching her father train officers on how to spot threats. Her father had taught her that trouble didn't always shout before it arrived. Sometimes, it walked in quietly, pretending to be normal. She went to the counter and told her manager. A kind but easily distracted man named Brian. Those 5 new customers. I think they're watching someone, she said softly. Brian frowned but laughed a little. Lena, this is a high-class restaurant. Maybe they're just nervous or new here. She wanted to insist, but stopped herself, knowing he wouldn't take her seriously. Still, she decided to stay alert and keep an eye on them herself. As she walked past their table again, she overheard a few words from their conversation. Wait for my signal. One of them whispered. No mistakes this time. Her heart skipped a beat. She quickly moved away, pretending to check another table, her mind racing. They weren't just strange. They were planning something, and she had a feeling Ethan was their target. She glanced at Ethan's table, where he was still talking with his colleagues, completely unaware of the danger growing around him. He laughed softly, lifting his glass for a toast, the picture of calm success. To anyone else, it was a normal dinner, but to Lena, it felt like the calm before a thunderstorm, the kind of silence that made her skin crawl. For a few minutes, she debated what to do. Should she call the police? Should she warn Ethan? Should she tell security outside? But if she was wrong, she could lose her job. Or worse, cause panic in the restaurant. Her mind fought with her heart, but her instincts kept screaming that she couldn't just stand by. She decided to stay close to Ethan's table. Whenever she passed, she pretended to refill glasses or wipe the counter. She watched the men carefully, the way they nodded slightly to each other, how one of them adjusted his sleeve to reveal a tattoo, and how another reached under the table briefly. Her eyes caught every detail, every move. Then something happened that made her blood run cold. The man with the scar leaned closer to his partner and said quietly, "We only have a few minutes. Don't mess it up." Lena froze for a moment. Her hands felt numb, but her focus became sharper than ever. This wasn't imagination anymore. This was real danger, and it was happening right in front of her. She quickly glanced around the restaurant. The other waiters were busy serving, no one paying attention. The manager was talking to a customer, and the security guard was still outside at the main door. If something went wrong, she would be the closest one to react. She could feel her heartbeat echoing in her ears, fast and heavy. Her mind went back to her training. Her father's voice, calm and firm, saying, "Breathe, focus, stay aware." Without showing her fear, she adjusted her tray and stepped toward the kitchen. There, she took out her phone and quietly texted one of the staff near the door. "Tell security to be ready. Something's not right." Her fingers trembled slightly, but her message was clear. Then she walked back out, pretending to stay calm, though her eyes never left the 5 men. They started to move differently now, leaning forward, whispering faster. One of them looked toward Ethan's table again, and this time, he gave a small nod. Lena knew what that meant. It was a signal. Her chest tightened. This was the moment everything would change. She stood only a few feet away, pretending to clean a nearby table. Her eyes were sharp, her muscles tense. Every sound in the restaurant, every clink of a glass, every laugh, faded away. All she could hear was the low hum of danger, building like a storm ready to break. Ethan laughed again, unaware of how close danger had come to him. The 5 men exchanged quick glances, and Lena saw one of them reach into his jacket. Her heart almost stopped. She knew what that movement meant. It wasn't for a phone, not for a wallet. It was something much worse. In that single second, Lena's instincts took full control. All the years of hiding her training disappeared. The peaceful waitress was gone. What remained was the protector her father had trained. Ready, aware, and fearless. The air felt heavy as the next moment began to unfold, and Lena, standing only a few feet away, prepared herself to do something no one in that restaurant would ever forget. The quiet tension that had been building all night was about to explode, and the woman everyone thought was just a simple waitress was about to change everything. Her past, her training, her courage. All of it was about to return in one breathtaking moment. The storm she felt inside was finally about to break, and this time she wasn't going to run from it. The restaurant was quiet for a moment, the kind of silence that feels too perfect, too still, like the air itself was holding its breath. Soft music played in the background. Glasses sparkled under golden lights, and waiters moved gracefully from one table to another. No one in La Vienne knew that danger was sitting right among them. Hidden behind polite faces and false smiles, Lena Carter stood near the counter, her heart pounding as she watched the group of 5 men who had been acting strangely all night. Her instincts screamed louder with every passing second. Something terrible was about to happen. Ethan Miles, the billionaire CEO, sat just a few tables away, still smiling and talking with his business partners. He was completely unaware of what was about to unfold. To him, it was just another pleasant dinner after a long day. A chance to relax, to talk about future plans, and to enjoy good food. But to the men watching him, it was the perfect opportunity. They had been waiting, watching, and signaling to each other all evening, timing their move carefully. Lena's eyes followed every motion. One of the men shifted in his seat. Another looked at his watch, and then their leader, the tall man with the scar across his jaw, gave a tiny nod. It was a silent command, one only they understood. In an instant, the calm evening turned into chaos. The men stood up so fast that their chairs crashed to the floor. The loud noise made everyone turn to look, confused and startled. Before anyone could react, 2 of the men rushed toward Ethan's table. One of them grabbed Ethan's shoulder roughly, while the other slammed his hand on the table, spilling drinks everywhere. Gasps and screams filled the room as people realized this wasn't a drunk outburst. It was an attack. Ethan's friends jumped from their seats, their faces pale with fear. "Hey, what's going on?" one of them shouted, but his words were drowned out by the sound of crashing plates and terrified voices. One of the attackers pulled out a small metal rod from inside his jacket, holding it like a weapon. The guests screamed and ducked under tables, trying to hide. The peaceful, elegant restaurant now looked like a war zone. Lena froze for only a second, her mind racing. She saw one of the men shove Ethan back into his chair, another moving behind him as if to block his escape. Her body reacted before her thoughts could catch up. She dropped the tray she was holding, and it hit the floor with a loud clang. But instead of running like everyone else, she stepped forward, her eyes sharp and focused. The tall man with the scar shouted, "Stay down! No one move!" He didn't notice Lena at first, not until she moved closer, silent and determined. Her years of training had taught her one important thing: never hesitate when lives are in danger. In a single smooth motion, she grabbed a heavy metal serving tray from the counter and flung it across the room. It hit one of the attackers square on the face with a loud thud. He stumbled back, clutching his nose, blood spilling through his fingers. The entire room froze for half a second, shocked by what just happened. No one expected the quiet waitress to fight back, let alone strike with such precision. But before the attackers could react, Lena was already moving. She ducked low, swept her leg out, and knocked another man off balance. He fell backward into a chair, crashing hard, his weapon sliding away from his hand. Ethan stared in disbelief as Lena moved like lightning, her body controlled and balanced. The man with the scar turned toward her, furious. "Stay out of this," he shouted, raising his arm. But Lena didn't stop. She stepped forward, blocked his swing, and twisted his wrist sharply, forcing him to drop the rod. Her movements were fast, practiced, and precise. There was no fear in her eyes, only focus. The restaurant guests couldn't believe what they were seeing. Some were hiding, others peeked out, phones shaking in their hands as they recorded the unbelievable scene. Lena, the quiet waitress they saw every day, was now standing between a billionaire and 5 violent men, fighting them off like a trained professional. One of the attackers came up behind her, grabbing her shoulder. Without turning, she shifted her weight and threw her elbow back, hitting him in the stomach. He groaned and fell to the floor, gasping for air. Another man lunged forward, trying to tackle her. but she sidestepped and kicked his leg, sending him crashing into the nearest table. Glass shattered everywhere, and the sound echoed through the restaurant. Ethan's chair fell as he stood up, still trying to understand what was happening. Lena shouted quickly, "Stay down, sir." Her voice was calm but firm. It carried authority, the kind that came from someone who had faced fear before. She turned just in time to block another attack, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting it until he dropped his knife. The blade slid across the floor harmlessly, far from anyone's reach. The leader of the group growled in anger, swinging his arm to hit her. Lena caught his hand midair and pushed him backward with a strong shove. He stumbled into a table, plates and glasses crashing to the floor. By now, the restaurant security had heard the noise and were rushing inside. But by the time they reached the scene, the fight was almost over. 4 of the attackers were on the ground, groaning in pain. The 5th one, the leader, tried to stand again. But Lena stepped forward, her voice low. "It's over." He froze, glaring at her. But something in her eyes made him stop. It wasn't anger. It was control, the calm strength of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Slowly, he raised his hands and backed away, defeated. When the police finally arrived, they found the attackers already disarmed and surrounded. The guests began to come out from under the tables, whispering in shock. Ethan stood there, breathing heavily, his eyes fixed on Lena. She looked calm again, though her hands were trembling slightly now that the danger had passed. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Ethan said quietly, You saved my life." Lena looked at him and simply replied, "I just did what I had to do." Around them, the restaurant was a mess. Broken glass, spilled drinks, and overturned chairs everywhere. But in that moment, no one cared about the damage. Everyone's eyes were on Lena, the quiet waitress who had turned into a hero right before their eyes. The chaos was finally over. But her story was only just beginning, because that night, the world had seen something extraordinary. The strength of a woman who had once walked away from her past but couldn't walk away from what was right. The restaurant was still buzzing with shock, the sound of police radios echoing faintly in the background. But the real focus of everyone's eyes was Lena, the waitress who had fought off 5 armed men without hesitation. She stood quietly near the counter, her uniform slightly torn, a few strands of hair falling over her face. Yet her calmness made her look stronger than ever. Ethan Miles, the billionaire CEO she had just saved, couldn't take his eyes off her. He had faced ruthless business competitors before, but never a moment that made him feel this small, this humbled. He walked toward her slowly, brushing the dust from his jacket, his voice soft. "You were incredible. Where did you learn to fight like that?" Lena looked down for a moment, not answering right away. Her eyes carried a quiet sadness, something deep that hinted at a story untold. "It was a long time ago," she said finally. "I used to be in a different world before this one." Her tone was gentle but firm, the kind that said she didn't want pity, only understanding. Ethan nodded, sensing she wasn't ready to say more. But curiosity lingered in his mind. He turned to see the police leading the attackers away, all handcuffed and defeated. One of them glancing back at Lena with fear in his eyes, as if he had just met someone he never wanted to see again. The manager of the restaurant, Mr. Thompson, rushed forward, his face pale. "Lena, my goodness, are you all right? You could have been killed." Lena smiled faintly. "I'm fine, sir, really?" But her hands were trembling slightly. She tried to hide it, pressing them together. She wasn't used to attention. She had lived quietly for years, working, smiling, blending in. Now all of a sudden, everyone knew her name. Everyone was looking at her like she was a hero. Ethan stepped closer. "If you hadn't been here tonight, I don't even want to think about what could have happened." Lena shrugged lightly. Anyone would have done the same. But the truth was, no one else in that restaurant could have done what she did. Her moves were too precise, her reactions too fast. It wasn't luck, it was skill, the kind built from years of training and discipline. Ethan noticed that, and it made him even more curious. One of the officers came up to her, notebook in hand. "Ma'am, We'll need your statement, please. Lena nodded politely, explaining everything in simple words, avoiding too much detail about how exactly she fought. She didn't want questions about her past. She had spent years hiding from it. After the chaos, she wanted her quiet life back. But deep down, she knew it wouldn't be that simple anymore. When the police left, Ethan walked outside the restaurant with her, the night air cool and still. "Do you mind if I offer you a ride home?" he asked. Lena shook her head, smiling a little. "Thank you, but I can walk." Ethan paused, then said softly, "You risked your life for me. I can at least make sure you get home safe." Something in his voice made her stop, and after a brief hesitation, she nodded. They walked together to his car, the city lights glowing faintly in the distance. As they drove, silence filled the space between them. Not awkward, just thoughtful. Ethan finally spoke. "You said you were from a different world before this. What did you mean?" Lena looked out the window, her reflection faint in the glass. "Let's just say I used to work in a place where danger was part of the job." He turned his head slightly. "Military?" She gave a small, knowing smile. "Close enough." Ethan didn't press further, but now he understood. This woman wasn't just brave. She was trained, possibly a former soldier or special agent. No wonder her movements were so sharp, her focus unshakable. As they reached her neighborhood, Lena pointed to a small apartment building. "Here's fine, thank you," she said. Ethan parked the car but didn't unlock the doors yet. He turned to her, his voice more serious now. "Lena, I owe you my life. I mean that." She looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his tone. "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do," he insisted. "If there's ever anything you need, anything, please let me know." Lena nodded politely. "You should rest, Mr. Miles. It's been a long night." Then she opened the door and stepped out into the cool night air, her silhouette fading into the dim streetlight. As Ethan drove away, he couldn't stop thinking about her. There was something extraordinary about that woman, something hidden behind her calmness. He had met countless people in his life, business leaders, politicians, celebrities, but none left him so deeply moved. She wasn't looking for fame or gratitude. She just did what was right, and that touched him more than anything else. Meanwhile, in her small apartment, Lena sat on her couch, staring at the wall. Her hands still shook slightly, the adrenaline not yet gone. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The memories she had buried for years came flooding back. The missions, the training, the moments when she had to fight to survive. She had promised herself never to use those skills again, never to return to that life. But tonight had proven something. No matter how hard she tried to live a normal life, her instincts would always wake up when danger called. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message from an unknown number. She frowned and opened it, her heart skipping a beat. The message read, "We saw what you did tonight, Lena. It's time we talked." Her stomach tightened. She didn't recognize the number, but the tone was all too familiar. For the first time in years, she felt the shadow of her past reaching out to her again. She put the phone down slowly, her mind racing. Saving Ethan had brought her into the light, but that same light had now made her visible to the people she'd been hiding from. Outside, the city lights shimmered, pretending everything was normal. But Lena knew. Tonight had changed everything. She wasn't just a waitress anymore, and soon the world would know exactly who she really was. Lena didn't sleep that night. She sat near her window, watching the city lights flicker below, her mind heavy with worry. The message she had received still glowed on her phone screen. "We saw what you did tonight, Lena. It's time we talked." Her hands trembled slightly as she locked her phone and placed it face down, trying to calm herself. It had been years since she heard from anyone connected to her past. Years since she had walked away from that dangerous life. She had thought she was safe, hidden, invisible, but now that illusion had shattered. Memories flooded back, the training camp, the missions, the long nights when survival depended on split-second decisions. She had worked in a covert unit that specialized in protection and intelligence gathering. She had been one of their best agents, known for her quick thinking and unmatched hand-to-hand skills. But after a mission went wrong, causing the loss of innocent lives, Lena left everything behind. She wanted peace, a quiet life, a world where no one knew her as an operative, only as a simple waitress. Now that world was falling apart. She knew that message could mean many things. Maybe her old agency had found her, or worse, maybe the enemies from her past had tracked her down. Either way, she knew trouble was coming. Still, there was one thing she had learned long ago. Fear only wins when you stop thinking. Early the next morning, Lena dressed quickly and went to work as usual, pretending nothing was wrong. The restaurant looked different now, quieter, almost sacred after what had happened. When she walked in, everyone turned to look at her, admiration in their eyes. Some of her co-workers clapped softly, others whispered, "That's her. That's the one who saved Mr. Miles." She smiled politely, feeling both proud and uneasy. Mr. Thompson came rushing over. "Lena, you shouldn't have come today. You deserve a week off. Maybe even a medal." Lena shook her head gently. "I'm fine, sir. I just want things to go back to normal." But deep down, she knew normal was gone. Ethan Miles arrived a short while later, accompanied by his bodyguards. He spotted her right away and walked over, smiling warmly. "Lena, I didn't expect to see you here already. I needed something to do," she replied, avoiding his curious gaze. Ethan hesitated before saying, "I've been thinking about last night, about you. You didn't just act on instinct. You fought like someone who's been trained for years. You saved my life, and I can't just walk away from that without understanding who you really are." Lena froze, her heart pounding. She didn't want to lie, but telling the truth would open doors she had locked for good. After a long silence, she said quietly, "Let's just say I've been through things most people haven't." Ethan studied her face, realizing there was more to her story than she would ever admit. He didn't push her. Instead, he said softly, "Whatever your past is, I'm grateful you were there." Before Lena could reply, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it. Another message from the same unknown number. "Cafe on 5th Street, 2 p.m. Come alone, or others will pay the price." Her chest tightened, her fingers cold as ice. She looked up quickly, trying to act normal. "I need to go out for a bit," she told Ethan, her voice steady. He nodded, unaware of the danger lurking behind her calmness. As soon as she stepped outside, her heart raced faster. She walked through the busy streets, scanning faces, reflections in glass, shadows in corners, old habits returning without thought. She reached the cafe, a small, quiet place with only a few customers. In the back corner sat a man in a dark coat, a faint scar under his left eye. The moment she saw him, her breath caught. "Agent Ryan," she whispered. He looked up, his face older now but still sharp. "You're not easy to find, Lena." She sat across from him slowly, her voice tense. "I told you years ago. I'm done." Ryan leaned back, his expression unreadable. "We saw the footage from the restaurant. You still have it, the skill, the control. You were made for this work." Lena shook her head. "I was made for peace, Ryan. That life took too much from me." He sighed. "It's not that simple anymore. The men you fought last night, they weren't random attackers. They were part of a private network we've been tracking for months. They knew Ethan Miles would be there. The attack was planned. And now you've made yourself a target." Lena's stomach dropped. "What do they want from him?" Ryan lowered his voice. "Information. His company holds technology worth billions. But now they also want you, because you stopped them." Lena felt the weight of his words like a stone in her chest. "So what are you saying?" "That I go back." Ryan looked straight at her. "You don't have a choice anymore. You're already involved. The same people who tried to kill Miles will come after you next. We can protect you, or you can run and hope they never find you." She looked out the cafe window, watching people walking by, living their simple lives. For years, she had been one of them. Quiet, invisible, safe. But deep down, she knew he was right. She could never truly escape who she was. Her hands curled into fists under the table. If I go back, it's only to finish this. After that, I disappear again. Ryan nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. You always were stubborn. As she stood to leave, Ryan said softly, Be careful, Lena. They've already been watching you. Her heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Your apartment, your workplace. They know where you are, he said quietly. Don't go home tonight. Lena nodded once, her expression turning hard. The calm waitress was gone. The trained agent had awakened again. That night, she didn't return to her apartment. Instead, she went to a small motel on the edge of town, somewhere she could watch without being watched. She sat by the window, checking the street below. Every passing car, every shadow made her alert. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown message. This time it was a picture, a blurry photo of her standing inside the restaurant the night before, and beneath it, the words, We found you. Lena exhaled slowly, her fear fading, replaced by determination. If they wanted to find her, they would. But she wouldn't be running this time. She whispered to herself, If they come, I'll be ready. Because she had spent years hiding from her past. But now that it had caught up to her, she knew one truth. Some battles don't end when you walk away. They just wait for you to return. The days after the attack at La Vienne were anything but normal for Lena. Even though the restaurant had returned to its usual rhythm, she could never feel calm again. Every face in the crowd, every passerby on the street seemed like a potential threat. Her phone kept buzzing with unknown numbers, messages, warnings, reminders that her past had found her again. But Lena refused to panic. She had faced worse before, and she knew fear would only make mistakes more likely. She began training herself again, quietly and carefully. In the small rented motel room she stayed in, she pushed herself physically, running laps around the tiny space, practicing defensive moves she had long put aside. Her hands shook at first, but soon the muscle memory returned. Every motion smooth, precise, controlled. It felt strange and familiar at the same time. Like waking up in a life she had left behind years ago. She realized that she was no longer just a waitress. She was someone who could fight and protect again, and this time, she had a purpose beyond herself. Meanwhile, Ethan Miles couldn't stop thinking about what had happened that night. He had always been impressed by strong people, but Lena's bravery and composure had left him speechless. He called the restaurant to check on her, asking the manager, Is she okay? Is she coming in today? The manager smiled. She's fine, sir, but she's been very quiet since the incident. Ethan nodded, though he felt a pull in his chest, wanting to see her, to make sure she was safe. He didn't know the full story, but he felt certain that Lena's life had changed forever. Lena, however, had bigger things to think about than returning to the restaurant. The men who had attacked Ethan were part of a larger network, one she had only briefly encountered in her past missions. She knew they wouldn't stop after one failed attempt, and now that she had interfered, she had put herself in their crosshairs. Every step outside could be dangerous, every phone call a trap. She needed a plan, she needed allies, and she needed information. Fast. Late one evening, she received a message that made her blood run cold. It was a video clip taken from a security camera outside her motel. Someone was watching her, tracking her every move. The screen flickered, showing a man leaning against a wall, wearing a hat pulled low over his eyes. Beneath the image, the message read, We are closer than you think. Her heart pounded, but instead of freezing, she exhaled slowly, her mind calculating her next move. She realized that hiding would no longer be enough. She had to confront the danger directly. Using her old contacts from her former life, Lena began gathering intelligence. She reached out to a trusted former colleague, someone who had always had her back in dangerous missions. They exchanged encrypted messages, sharing information about the men who had attacked Ethan, their patterns, and possible locations. Lena trained her body and mind simultaneously, going over every detail repeatedly. She knew that one small mistake could cost not only her life but also Ethan's, who had become an unintentional target in this dangerous game. Meanwhile, Ethan, unaware of the full extent of the threat, decided to visit Lena at the motel. He knocked softly on the door, unsure what to expect. When Lena opened it, she was in casual clothes, her hair tied back, but her eyes were sharp, alert, scanning the hallway instinctively. "Mr. Miles," she said calmly. "You shouldn't be here. It's not safe." Ethan nodded. "I know, but I wanted to see if you're all right. I owe you so much." She looked at him for a moment, conflicted between gratitude and worry, then said, "You need to trust me. Stay away from this until I say otherwise." Ethan hesitated, but nodded, realizing she had become the protector now, and he had to trust her. Over the next few days, Lena studied the attackers' network, tracking their movements and noticing patterns that only someone with her training could detect. She discovered that the men weren't just common criminals. They were highly organized, working under someone powerful, someone who had resources and influence. It explained why they had attacked Ethan with such precision, and why they knew about him in the first place. The more she learned, the more she realized that she couldn't handle this alone. And yet, she had to act, because any hesitation could be fatal. One night, Lena practiced her defensive moves quietly in the motel room, repeating strikes, blocks, and evasions. The adrenaline from her training mixed with the fear in her chest. But her mind was sharp, focused, ready. She remembered her father's words, the ones he had said so many years ago. "You are strongest when you stay calm in chaos." That lesson now guided her every move, every thought, every calculation. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a fighter awakened, a protector who would not back down. Lena also realized she couldn't stay isolated forever. She contacted a few trusted allies from her old life, former agents and operatives who owed her loyalty. They agreed to help her create a secure plan to protect Ethan and herself. Together, they devised surveillance strategies, escape routes, and contingency plans. Every step was measured, precise, calculated. Everything her past life had trained her to do. Despite all this, Lena felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. Fear because the danger was real and close, and excitement because she was finally embracing the part of herself she had hidden for so long. The quiet life she had tried to lead was gone, replaced by purpose, responsibility, and courage. She knew one thing for sure. She wouldn't let these men win, and she wouldn't let Ethan get hurt. Her life, her skills, and her heart were now fully committed to facing the danger head-on. By the end of the week, Lena had transformed completely. Physically, mentally, and emotionally, she was alert at all times, ready for any attack, and fully aware that the men from last night weren't done. They would come again, but she was prepared, and this time, she would be the one controlling the situation. The quiet waitress had become a force to be reckoned with, and soon, everyone would see that the courage she had buried for years was unstoppable when awakened. The city was quiet that night, the kind of silence that felt temporary, like the calm before another storm. Lena sat in her motel room, reviewing the plans she had made with her former colleagues, every detail sharp in her mind, every possible scenario anticipated. She had prepared for this moment for years, though she had never imagined it would be protecting someone like Ethan Miles. Her heart still raced when she thought about the attack at La Vienne, but it was no longer fear. It was focus, determination, and a quiet resolve. She had realized long ago that her life had two sides: the calm, ordinary world she had tried to live in, and the dangerous, unpredictable one that she could not escape. Ethan was waiting in the car outside, hesitant but trusting her judgment completely. He had been briefed on the danger in a very general way, enough to know that he could not act recklessly. He glanced at Lena through the rearview mirror, admiration clear in his eyes. "You're ready for this, aren't you?" he asked quietly. Lena gave him a small, calm nod. "I've faced worse. Tonight, I protect you. Nothing else matters." Her voice carried a quiet confidence, the kind that came from someone who had survived impossible situations before. As they drove to the location she had scouted, Lena's mind ran through every detail of the attackers' patterns. She had studied their previous moves, anticipated their strategies, and prepared countermeasures for each one. Her former colleagues had also set up surveillance, providing updates on anyone approaching. The streets were dark, but Lena's eyes caught every movement, every shadow, every reflection. She moved with the same precision that had saved Ethan at the restaurant, and she knew this time would be no different. They arrived at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the place Lena had identified as the attacker's likely target location. It was quiet, eerily still, and shadows stretched across the cracked pavement. Ethan's bodyguards stayed in the car, keeping watch, but Lena knew she would have to act fast if anything happened. She moved like a shadow herself, crouching low, staying alert, listening to every small sound. Her hand hovered over the small tactical knife she carried, a silent reminder that she was ready for anything. Moments later, the attackers appeared, 5 men emerging from the darkness. Their expressions sharp, confident, dangerous. They had not expected her to be ready, not like this. The leader, the man with the scar, raised his hand, signaling the attack. Lena didn't hesitate, her body moving faster than thought, instincts taking over. She struck first, landing a precise kick that sent one man stumbling into a stack of crates. Another lunged at her, but she sidestepped, twisting his arm sharply to the side, forcing him to drop his weapon. The fight unfolded like a storm, chaotic yet controlled. Lena moved with speed and accuracy, each movement calculated, each strike deliberate. Her training years ago came back fully, muscle memory taking over. She didn't fight for glory. She fought for survival, for justice, and for the safety of Ethan. The attackers realized quickly that this was not a simple woman they were facing, but someone who had fought countless battles before. Ethan watched from the sidelines, astonished at her skill. He had never seen anyone move like this, not in his world of business or luxury. Every time one attacker tried to advance, Lena anticipated, blocked, or countered. It was like watching a dance, one that was deadly but mesmerizing. Her calm voice carried commands to Ethan, telling him where to stay, what to do, keeping him safe without raising panic. One by one, the attackers fell, unable to match her precision and speed. She used her environment to her advantage, crates, walls, even the warehouse doors, turning every object into a tool of defense. The leader finally realized that brute force alone would not win. He approached her directly, swinging with full strength, but Lena caught his wrist, twisted it, and pushed him to the ground with controlled force. He groaned, defeated, finally recognizing that this quiet waitress was far more dangerous than he could have imagined. By the time the police and Ethan's reinforcements arrived, the fight was already over. The attackers were restrained, some unconscious, others too injured to continue. Lena stood in the middle of the warehouse, breathing steadily, her uniform torn but her spirit unbroken. Ethan rushed toward her, his face full of gratitude and awe. "I don't know how to thank you." Lena shook her head. "You don't need to. Just be safe. That's enough." He smiled, realizing that words could never truly capture what she had done. She had risked her life, faced her past, and defeated danger with courage and skill. After the incident, Lena returned to her quiet life at the motel. But she knew things had changed forever. She could never go back to being just a waitress, invisible and ordinary. Her life was now a blend of both worlds. The calm exterior she maintained for others, and the sharp, courageous agent ready to act when necessary. Ethan respected her boundaries, but he also knew he could trust her completely, and Lena realized that courage, skill, and heart were never things she could leave behind. That night, she sat by the window again, looking at the city below. The danger had passed, but she felt stronger than ever. She had faced the past, protected someone she barely knew, and reclaimed a part of herself she had hidden for years. The quiet waitress and the trained protector had merged into one unstoppable presence. She smiled softly, knowing that whatever came next, she would face it without fear, because sometimes heroes are quiet, unseen, and ordinary by day, but when the moment arrives, they rise with strength that shocks the world. Lena had become that hero, Quiet, precise, and powerful, her secret skill had saved lives, defeated danger, and revealed her true self. And though the world may never fully understand her, she had found her purpose, her courage, and her peace. Tonight, the city slept, unaware that one woman had changed everything, and Lena Carter, the waitress with a hidden past, was finally free to be both herself and the protector she was born to be.